Today on Time About the Movies, the Transformers are back in a movie that it's much better than Revenge of the Fallen was, but then again, that one wasn't heavily affected by a writer's strike, and Michael Bay didn't take over the scripting for that. But that doesn't make it as good as the original Transformers does it. We'll talk about that one. We'll also take a look at Tom Hanks' directorial effort following That Thing You Do 15 years ago. Back again, this time with Larry Crowd along with Julia Roberts, so it's got to be good, right? Again, we'll talk about it. And we'll also take a look at Selena Gomez, Leighton Meester, and Katie Cassidy in the family comedy Monte Carlo. So 3 films to take a look at as we begin the halfway point of 2011 today on Time About the Movies. Welcome to Time About the Movies, and as I said, we are at the halfway point of 2011, taking a look at the 3 films of July 1st, 2011. And of course, you gotta have, if it's 4th of July weekend, then clearly you gotta have a Transformers movie coming out. Transformers Dark of the Moon. You know, this is the 3rd installment of the Transformers series after Revenge of the Fallen, and the first Transformers movie broke records for 4th of July. And kind of like with the first Transformers movie, it seemed like this one was trying to get back on track. Starting with the fact that there were Tuesday night screenings for this movie before the film opened up, which I did go to see at 8 o'clock on a Tuesday night before the film came out, and that kind of led me to my enjoyment factor of the original movie overall, which I enjoyed the original film, mostly because I was one of the first people that got to see it, and seeing this one for the first time, it's definitely one where that kind of played into my overall expectations at first, but has it held up in the time since? Not exactly, but that doesn't make it a bad film either. At least to me. But when the war on Cybertron between the Autobots and Decepticons appears lost to the Autobots and their leader Sentinel Prime, voiced by Leonard Nimoy, attempts to launch the Ark from their planet containing technology that could have saved his kind. Attacked by Toyboat? Attacked by I cannot say this name for some reason. Attacked by Starscream. Why can't I say that name? Attacked by Here I go again. Attacked by Starscream. Attacked by Attacked by Starscream. Jesus Christ. It crashes on Earth's moon in 1961. President John F. Kennedy makes his famous promise to the nation to put a man on the moon. The 1969 NASA moon landing. I'm having trouble speaking today for some reason. The 1969 NASA moon landing is actually an investigation of the wrecked spacecraft. As Sam Witwicky, played again by Shia LaBeouf, goes into adulthood, the Autobots are busy as they learn of a Cybertronian spacecraft on the moon, and must... I lost my train of thought there first. I'm losing my train of thought during this, because I'm flabbergasted by the fact that I can say Cybertronian perfectly fine, but I can't say attacked by Starscream one time, or the 1969 NASA moon landing. Good lord. Back to the plot line here. On the moon, and must race against the Decepticons to find it and learn its secrets, which could turn the tide into the apocalyptic final battle. Good lord. I have never ever in my time doing this show had a hard time reading a synopsis like that with words that I could easily understand. I don't know what the hell is going on with me right now, but we're done with that. Let's talk about the movie. And you know, I liked the first Transformers movie, but the sequel, yeah, I didn't like that one. But then again, that was mostly because it was one of those movies that was heavily affected by the writer's strike of 07 and 08. But this one does bring it back on track. I think it is up there with some of the best Transformers movies by Michael Bay. Not the best Transformers movies, because really the best Transformers movies are ones that Michael Bay stays clear the hell away from, like Bumblebee, Rise of the Beast, and Transformers 1. Like, those 3 films are the reason why you should not bring Michael Bay back, which sounds like they're sadly going to do. But then again, this is the new Paramount now, and apparently, if we have to all suffer, if they're going to suffer with the people that are behind this merger with Skydance, then we're all going to suffer together, apparently. But this movie does have its flaws, but they aren't as sporadic as they were in the last 2 films. Let's get the good things out of the way. The best thing I like about this is that I thought the 3D and the special effects overall worked pretty well. They weren't as clunky as they were in Revenge of the Fallen. They were actually some of the best ones I had seen at that point since How to Train Your Dragon, and maybe since Avatar. They were that good of 3D effects in here. there is consistency in the movie that follows what was established in the cartoons of the 80s, and they don't use stupid jokes or ridiculous, pointless innuendo. They don't have a Prime being killed by someone who's not a Prime, and they don't have John Turturro being embarrassed once again, getting pissed on, or having him in his underwear. Like, they do manage to combine the moon landing and the storyline and make it seem plausible. They actually did find a good job of getting a John F. Kennedy look-alike instead of getting a whatever the hell they were getting with George Bush in the first movie. And the cast actually does contribute here. Shia LaBeouf isn't doing his similar shtick. He's not screaming no, 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 no all the time. He actually is doing something in this movie. And it's good to see Josh Duhamel and Tyrese Gibson back in here. John Turturro actually does have a big part in this movie that actually makes sense to the film's storyline. Some of the new additions I thought were pretty good, except for, of all people, Patrick Dempsey, who I thought was... I thought that he was really kind of just a bland, pointless side villain, I guess, because he's not really a villain per se, but, you know, he's not really adding much here to the table overall. People like John Malkovich, Ken Jeong, Alan Tudyk were just okay, I guess. They weren't too bad. I kind of would have liked to see more of Jeong in this film, because he's always fun to watch in films like these. Frances McDormand was the one who kind of got on my nerve quickly, surprisingly. Like, she just randomly shows up out of the blue. And when you see her, she's just so obnoxious. And every time she's on screen, it's just like, look, you're an Academy Award-winning actress. I know you can do better than this, but why do you have to play a whining bitch in this movie? Like, that's all she does in this movie. Is just bitch about the fact that, oh, these damn robots, you know, the president's not going to like this whatsoever. Just like, shut up. Just shut up, please. Which is probably what I could say about the new side chick for Shia LaBeouf in this movie, because, you know, this is Rosie Huntington-Whiteley, and yeah, she looks hot, but again, she does absolutely nothing in this movie except to be Shia LaBeouf's new love interest, which, I'm sorry, she pales in comparison to Megan Fox. At least Megan Fox actually did something to help in those first two movies. Huntington-Whiteley doesn't do a damn thing in here, but just stares off screen looking at these obviously CG robots that are not there right now, but they will be when the movie comes out. And the movie literally begins with an ass shot of her for no particular reason except the fact that, hey, it's a Michael Bay movie, and we want to make you forget about Megan Fox, which, yeah, there was that big controversy with them and her and Michael Bay at the time, which apparently fell apart pretty quickly because 3 years later she was in the Michael Bay produced Ninja Turtles movie. So take that for what you will. But the bad things about the movie, Sam's parents, Kevin Dunn and Julie White, usually they were okay in the other movies, but they also got on my nerves really quickly because they just felt like they were there to be the pointless comedy relief, and every time they showed up on there, I couldn't take it, man. Like, I mean, that was a thing that I got on my nerves really quickly, and the movie is way too long, which, yeah, back then I thought to myself, you know, 2.5 hours of sitting here watching this, yeah, this is clearly going to be the low point for the Transformers movies, not knowing that the next two films that Michael Bay would do would be over 3 hours long each, and what the hell was that? With over 3 hours long each. So yeah, I guess I can give this movie a little bit of the benefit of the doubt that it's not as long as the next two movies are, but it still goes on way too long, easily. Like, overall, yeah, this is a very flawed film, but it's still a hell of a fun time overall. I think it does have a lot of good fun elements that you go in there. You know, it's in the summertime, it's hot outside, you go in there, grab a bowl of popcorn, shut your brain off, and just go on and have the time of your life, which is what the film offers here. The characters do contribute more to the action this time around. The action does kick ass. The 3D effects actually look pretty cool. It's everything Revenge of the Fallen was supposed to be, and it just wasn't. And yeah, seeing it on a big screen was pretty cool. Granted, when you watch it at home later on, it definitely loses a lot of its muster, but never to the point where I would say it's a bad movie. I mean, like I said, it beats the crap out of the last movie. It certainly beats the crap out of the next two films we'll look at here, because sooner or later, Michael Bay will overstay his welcome with the Transformers movies, and that will make Paramount realize, yeah, you gotta go, and then the good stuff will start coming in about 7 years' time, so give it then. But, that's all I gotta say about that one. That's Transformers Dark of the Moon. So let's go ahead and move on to our next movie, and that is Tom Hanks back in the director's chair for the first time in 15 years, and also co-starring with Julia Roberts in a star-studded cast in Larry Crown.
Larry Crown. I can see you. Rated PG-13 in theaters July 1st.
Yeah, this movie surprisingly was nowhere near as good as it should have been, especially considering It's directed by the same guy that made one of my favorite movies of all time, That Thing You Do, which is a phenomenal movie, which he also starred in. So yeah, naturally, I'm going to be excited when he makes his triumphant return in the director's chair, and yeah, not this time. Unfortunately, with all the people involved, this thing should have been a whole lot better than it actually was, but this is based off of a story about, Hank's time studying at Shabbat College, and it follows Larry Crown, who's a middle-aged man who unexpectedly loses his job and returns to education. And he ends up falling in love with Julia Roberts, and also features a cast that also includes a lot of notable names: Bryan Cranston, Cedric the Entertainer, Taraji P. Henson, Guba Mbatha-Raw, Wilma Valderrama, Pam Grier, Rita Wilson, George Takei, Rob Riggle, Ian Gomez, Rami Malek, just a huge number of names in this movie. So you think that this film should be much better than it actually was. And sadly, it wasn't. It's not a bad movie per se, but for a movie with Tom Hanks, you expect a lot. For a movie with him and Julia Roberts, you expect a lot. For him to return to the director's chair for the first time since That Thing You Do, again, you expect a whole lot more from this. Not the most blandest, most mediocre storyline ever. I mean, this is a story that is not that interesting at all. And part of it, I think, is because it is a PG-13 rated movie, and it feels like a movie that's more appealing to the older demographic than the people who are actually watch young people that watch Tom Hanks' movies in the past. This just feels like a film that has no reason to exist, literally. Like, that's what Roger Ebert said when he reviewed this movie, and I completely agree with him. This literally feels like a film that has no reason to exist whatsoever. This feels like a pilot for a television series for CBS, but because it's Tom Hanks and Julia Roberts at the forefront of this, of course it's got to go to the big screen. And guess who Tom Hanks co-wrote this with? Nia Vardalos, the woman whose career peaked at My Big Fat Greek Wedding 10 years ago, and now she's just on fumes at this point. Yeah, here's the fumes at this point. I mean, granted, this isn't anywhere near as bad as Connie and Carla or My Life in Ruins. Those are bad movies, but this, right from, as soon as I saw her name attached, it's just like, okay, we know that we're not going to get a good movie out of this, unfortunately, and it's a shame, man, because with all these people involved in here, you expect so much more from this, and it's just 2 hours of nothingness. You're literally sitting there for a long period of time going like, come on, get to the point already. What the hell? Like, literally nothing goes on in this movie that makes me want to say that you want to see it. And, like, it's a struggle to sit through. It's an unbelievable struggle to sit through. I couldn't believe how bad it was. I mean, again, I say bad, but it's just bland, mediocre, and for a movie with such names as Tom Hanks, Julia Roberts, and Bryan Cranston among the people involved in it, a movie like this should not be bland or boring. There should be at least an intriguing element to here. Tom Hanks very rarely misses the mark, but this is one where he really missed the mark here, not just as an actor, but also as a director, to the point where he has not directed a movie since then. And maybe That Thing You Do was simply just a one-trick pony, and one that, that was a great movie on its own merits. Maybe it's just simply that fact that he just really needs to maybe that was just a lightning in a bottle moment, and maybe this was the moment he realized, yeah, I'm really not cut out to direct these movies anymore. So, yeah, that's just my thinking behind that overall. But, yeah, this movie, unfortunately, it doesn't work. And for some people, for a movie with Tom Hanks, Julia Roberts, and the cast that this has, you expect so much more from it, and it's just not there, unfortunately. So, yeah, a hard skip on Larry Crown. So let's go ahead and wrap this up with our last one that we have here, and that is Monte Carlo.
They're leaving.
And then the three girls get kidnapped by sex traffickers, and then they get a call from Liam Neeson saying, I don't know who you are, but what I do know is that I have a very particular set of skills that I've acquired over a very long career. Skills that make me a nightmare for people like you. I will look for you, I will find you, and I will kill you. And then it becomes a Taken sequel, which, let's be honest, would probably be a whole lot better than the Taken sequels that we did get. And okay, I'm kidding. That's not exactly what happens in this movie. They're not ripping off Taken. No. They're ripping off something that is more appropriate for a film in the same demographic.
This is crazy. It's me, Cordelia. Mother's forcing me to go to some charity thing. You look just like her. Look this way. You're like twins.
Excuse me, Miss Scott. As you requested, 26-pound lobster.
I shall take it in my room.
Hi, Lizzie McGuire movie. It's literally the Lizzie McGuire movie all over again. I mean, it's literally the same plot as that movie, except now instead of just one person living the life of a famous British socialite, it's now 3 people living the life of a British socialite. And I'm not kidding around here. A young woman, played by Selena Gomez, her uptight stepsister, and her best friends, played by Leighton Meester and Katie Cassidy, used the savings from a long-anticipated dream trip to Paris, which turns out to be a big disappointment. When they decide to take a break from the lousy tour and duck into the lobby of a luxury hotel, one of them is mistaken for a spoiled British heiress who looks exactly like Selena Gomez, because it is her in a dual role. Before they get the chance to reveal their true identities, they are wrapped up in misadventures in Monte Carlo. So essentially, they take this British socialite's identity and essentially just say, you know, we're going to do this, and we don't give a shit if anybody ever finds out about it, because nobody will ever find out about it, because we live in movie world. And in movie world, we can do shit like this, and there will be no cops around and no consequences whatsoever. That is literally the plot of this entire movie. And, you know, it's funny I brought up Julia Roberts in the Larry Crown review, because guess which movie she was also up for? Yeah, this one here. Her and Nicole Kidman were originally the film's stars, and then the producers basically said, no, we're going to go ahead and film this with the younger cast. But Kidman retained herself as the producer on this, which probably means that she never had anything to do with the making of the movie, but she got probably a nice paycheck when the film came out. And maybe not, maybe, I don't know, because this thing was not the biggest hit overall. And really, it's not hard to see why, because, yeah, this thing is kind of lame. And like I said, it's a movie that's literally living in the world of fantasy, and not even a good fantasy overall. The Lizzie McGuire movie at least had fun with the identity of the fact that, you know, we have somebody that literally looks like the same person that we've come to know, and now we're going to have them swap lives. And, you know, that made for a much slightly more fun movie overall. I guess for the target audience, it's not the worst, and it is cool to see these 3 actresses overall working off each other, because they do work off each other very well. And like I said before, Leighton Meester has a much better movie here in 2011 than The Roommate was, so take that for what you will. But you also have a cast that includes Andy McDowell, Catherine Tate, Brett Cullen, who else is in here? Luke Bracey in one of the few roles where I would say he's actually worth it. Corey Monteith, the late Corey Monteith from Glee. And like I said, it's not a bad movie overall, and I think it also helps because you have a director in Thomas Pasucha, whose last movie I really liked was The Family Stone, that came out 6 years prior to this. That's still, I think, his best movie overall. And this one, I criticized it for being kind of a ripoff of the Lizzie McGuire movie, which it is, but it's a movie that's clearly not made for me. I'm not the target demographic, and for what the film did for its target audience, it's not bad. I mean, it really is. I've seen much worse movies that have been trying to literally take this plot and do more with it, and it becomes obnoxious and annoying. This one does not become obnoxious and annoying, but it is kind of it's just not for me. It's a movie that, for its target audience of girls, I think they would enjoy the hell out of it. But for me, yeah, I'm just looking at it and going like, yeah, how many crimes are these women committing right now? Because you could tell, you know, that if this was in reality, they would have arrested these girls right away, and who knows, they might have actually gone to the sex trafficking afterwards. But I don't know. I mean, I'm just making lousy jokes here. But yeah, overall, I wasn't a big fan of it. But again, I'm not the target audience for it. The target audience probably will enjoy it more than I would ever do. So that's Monte Carlo for you. And thus, with all that said, we wrap up another edition of Time About the Movies. And the next time we meet, two more comedies to look at. Charlie Day, Jason Bateman, and Jason Sudeikis star in a movie where they're getting revenge on their bosses, Kevin Spacey, Colin Farrell, and Jennifer Aniston, in the raunchy comedy Horrible Bosses. And the wonderful trend of bad kids movies continues in 2011 because Adam Sandler and his crew, with their second big flop of the year, Kevin James starring in Zookeeper. Yeah, I think I don't need to explain why that movie is so bad. I think you already can tell what that movie is if you've already heard about it. But Zookeeper, we'll take a look at that one along with Horrible Bosses as we move into the next weekend of July. That's coming up tomorrow on the show, so definitely be on the lookout for that. With all that said, thank you so much for watching this. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please go ahead and hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, and hit the notification button. And also don't forget to check out the playlist right down there, and also check out the last episode I did. And with all that said, whether it's in the past, the present, or the future, I will see you at the movies. Take care.